They say trust is the foundation of every marriage. But what happens when trust begins to fade, slowly, almost invisibly, until you wake up one day and realize the person you thought you knew has become a stranger? My name is Caldwell, and for years I believed I had the perfect life. I was married to a woman named Vanessa, the kind of woman who turned heads without even trying. She was ambitious, driven, full of charm, and I thought she loved me the way I loved her. For 7 years, we built a marriage together. 7 years of shared dinners, late-night talks, and plans for the future. I believed, with all my heart, that we were unbreakable. But as I stand here telling you the story, I can tell you that one lie, one so-called business trip, was all it took to change everything. I met Vanessa at a corporate networking event in downtown Chicago. I wasn't even supposed to be there. My friend dragged me along, telling me I needed to mingle more, make connections, maybe even find someone. I never expected to meet her. She was standing near the bar, a glass of red wine in her hand, laughing at something a colleague had said. Her auburn hair shimmered in the light, and when she looked over at me, it was like the rest of the room disappeared. I walked up, nervous as hell, but she made it easy. We started talking, not about work or careers, but about books, places we wanted to travel, even silly things like our favorite coffee shops. It felt real, like I had known her for years. Within months, we were inseparable. A year later, I was down on one knee, asking her to be my wife. When she said yes, I thought my life was complete. For a long time, it really was. We had the kind of marriage people envied. She worked as a project manager at a big marketing firm, and I ran my own small business. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We supported each other, celebrated wins, and laughed at losses. She was my partner in every sense of the word. And then came the business trips. At first, they seemed harmless. She told me her company was expanding, taking on clients in other cities. The first time she went away, it was to Dallas. She kissed me goodbye, suitcase in hand, promising to call me every night. And she did. Her voice was warm, her words soft. I didn't doubt her for a second. But over the years, the trips became more frequent. New York, San Francisco, Miami. Always somewhere new. Always for a few days at a time. I tried to be supportive. She was chasing success, and I admired that about her. But then, little cracks started to show. One night, after she came back from a supposed trip to Boston, I found a receipt in her purse from a restaurant in Chicago. The same night, she told me she was in another city. When I asked her about it, she laughed, almost too quickly, and said, "Oh, that's from before I left. I must have forgotten to take it out." Her tone was casual, dismissive, and I wanted to believe her. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was being paranoid, but something in my gut told me otherwise. Over time, Vanessa changed. She became distant in ways that were hard to put into words. She started keeping her phone face down on the table, always locked with a new password I didn't know. She stayed late at the office more often, coming home past midnight with excuses about deadlines and demanding clients. Sometimes, when she walked in, there was a different perfume lingering on her clothes, one I didn't recognize. I would hug her, and she would stiffen. Like my arms were a cage, she wanted to escape. The woman I had once known, the woman who used to look at me with love in her eyes, now looked at me like I was in her way. The worst part was the lies. They weren't big, dramatic lies at first. They were small ones, little details that didn't add up. She said she had dinner with a colleague, but the restaurant she mentioned had been closed for renovations for weeks. She claimed she stayed at a Marriott in Miami, but the key card I found in her purse was from a Hilton. When I asked questions, she always had answers, smooth, practiced answers that left me doubting my own sanity. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just insecure. That's what she wanted me to believe. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The breaking point came one rainy Thursday evening. Vanessa told me she had to fly to New York for a last-minute meeting with a client. She packed her bags quickly, kissed me on the cheek, and rushed out the door. But something about it felt off. Her suitcase was lighter than usual, like she hadn't packed enough for even a one-night trip. Her voice was different too, rushed, impatient, almost rehearsed. When the door closed behind her, I sat there in silence, listening to the rain against the windows, and made a decision. For years, I had trusted her blindly. But not this time. This time, I was going to find out the truth. The next morning, I called her office, pretending to be a client. I asked if Vanessa Hart was available. The receptionist hesitated, then said, "Oh, she's not scheduled for any travel this week. She's working remotely." My stomach dropped. Remotely? She told me she was in New York. I thanked the receptionist, hung up the phone, and felt a storm of emotions crash over me. Anger, betrayal, fear. For the first time, I couldn't deny what my gut had been screaming for months. She was lying to me, and I had to know why. I checked our bank account, something I rarely did because Vanessa handled most of our finances. That's when I noticed unusual charges, expensive dinners at hotels, spa treatments, even jewelry purchases I had never seen. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the transactions. It wasn't just one or two, it was a pattern, a hidden life, unfolding right in front of me. But the final clue came when I found an email on our shared tablet. She had forgotten to log out of her account. The message was short, almost casual. "Can't wait to see you at the Hilton tomorrow night. Same room as always." It wasn't signed with a name, but I didn't need one. My world shattered in that moment. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage. Every smile, every kiss, every whispered "I love you." Were they all lies? Or had she once meant them, before throwing it all away? By morning, my sadness had hardened into something else. Determination. If she wanted to play games, I was done being a pawn. I was going to see the truth with my own eyes. That evening, when she said she was flying to New York, I followed her. She didn't go to the airport. Instead, she drove across town to a Hilton hotel. My heart pounded as I trailed her car, every turn feeling like a knife in my chest. I parked a block away and watched as she walked inside, suitcase rolling behind her. She looked calm, confident, even happy. Happier than she'd looked with me in months. My hands tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of the car, rain soaking through my jacket, and walked into the hotel. My legs felt heavy, but my anger pushed me forward. I asked the receptionist about her room, pretending to be her husband, which, of course, I was. The receptionist hesitated, then gave me the number. Room 804. I took the elevator, every ding of the floor counter echoing like a countdown to destruction. When I reached the 8th floor, my hand was shaking. I walked down the hallway, each step echoing off the walls. And then, there it was, 804. I stood there, staring at the door, my heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it inside. For a moment, I almost turned back. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me wanted to keep living in the lie, because the truth would hurt too much. But I had come this far. I had to see. I raised my hand, ready to knock, ready to confront her. And that's when I heard it. A man's voice, muffled but unmistakable, laughing from inside the room. My blood ran cold. And in that moment, I knew. My marriage was already over. I stood frozen outside room 804, my hand hovering inches away from the door. The muffled laughter inside felt like daggers cutting through my chest. That voice, deep, confident, wasn't mine. It belonged to someone else, someone sharing moments with a woman who had once sworn to love me forever. My heart pounded in my ears as rainwater dripped down my jacket, mixing with the sweat on my forehead. I told myself to breathe, to stay calm, but anger boiled in my veins like fire. For a long moment, I just stood there. I could walk away, pretend I had never followed her. I could go back home, wait for her to return with her perfect little lies, and keep living in denial. But I couldn't. Not anymore. The truth was right there, only a few feet away, and I needed to see it with my own eyes. I raised my fist and knocked on the door. At first, silence. Then footsteps. The door creaked open a crack, and there she was, Vanessa. Her eyes widened when she saw me, the color draining from her face. She tried to step into the hallway, blocking my view inside, but it was too late. Behind her, I saw him, a tall man in a suit jacket, his tie loosened, holding a glass of wine like he belonged there. Ethan, she stammered, her voice trembling. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? I said, my voice low, shaking with barely contained rage. That's my question for you, Vanessa. What the hell are you doing here? She glanced back at the man, then at me, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the right words. It's not what it looks like, she whispered. I laughed bitterly, pushing past her into the room. Not what it looks like. You're in a hotel room with another man while you're supposed to be in New York. Tell me, Vanessa, what exactly is this supposed to look like? The man set down his glass and stood up, trying to act calm. Hey, man, maybe we should talk about this later. This doesn't have to get messy. I turned to him, my eyes burning. Stay out of this. This is between me and my wife. Vanessa's hands trembled as she reached for me. Please, Ethan, let's go somewhere else and talk. I can explain. Explain. I snapped, stepping back from her touch. Explain what? The lies? The receipts? The emails? Or maybe you can explain why your so-called business trips always end in a hotel room like this. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't see remorse. I saw fear. Fear of being caught. She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. The man cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Look, maybe you two need some space. Shut up, I barked, my voice louder than I intended. He froze. I turned back to Vanessa, my chest heaving. How long, Vanessa? How long has this been going on? She hesitated, then whispered, A year. The word hit me harder than any punch could. A year. 12 months of lies, of kisses tainted with betrayal, of nights where she told me she loved me while sneaking away to him. My knees nearly buckled, but I forced myself to stand tall. I looked at the man again, memorizing his face. Who is he? She didn't answer. He stepped forward instead. My name's Richard. Richard Lawson. We didn't mean for it to get this far. Didn't mean for it. I cut him off, my voice sharp. You've been sleeping with my wife for a year, and you didn't mean for it? Vanessa started crying harder, her shoulders shaking. Ethan, please, I made a mistake. No, I said coldly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. This is a choice. Every single time you came here, every single lie you told me, you chose this. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. I stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew, and realized she was a stranger. The Vanessa I fell in love with, the one who once laughed with me until sunrise, no longer existed. In her place stood someone selfish, deceitful, and cruel. Finally, I turned and walked to the door. We're done, I said flatly. Ethan, wait, she cried, rushing after me. Please, I can fix this. I'll end it with him, I swear. I spun around, my eyes blazing. You already ended it, Vanessa. You ended it the moment you chose him over me. I left before she could say another word. The elevator ride down felt endless, the walls closing in on me as I replayed everything in my head. By the time I stepped outside into the cold night air, I felt hollow, like someone had ripped out my heart and left nothing behind. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember the streets or the traffic lights. All I remember is gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, my mind swirling with images of her and Richard together. When I finally pulled into our driveway, I sat there in the car for nearly an hour, staring at the house we once called home. Inside, the life we had built together felt like a cruel joke. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through the rooms, touching the furniture we bought together, looking at the photos of vacations and anniversaries, smiles frozen in time, hiding the lies that were happening behind the scenes. Anger burned hotter with every step I took. She thought she could lie to me, cheat on me, and still come back to this house like nothing happened. She thought I would be too weak to do anything about it. But she was wrong. By morning, my sadness was gone. All that remained was determination. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I wasn't going to fight Richard for her love. No, I was going to take back control of my life. If she wanted betrayal, I would give her consequences. If she wanted to destroy our marriage, then I would make sure she felt every ounce of pain she had caused me. The first step was preparation. I gathered every piece of evidence I had. Bank statements, receipts, emails, everything. I copied it all into a folder, neatly organized, like a case file. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to expose her lies, legally and socially. She had humiliated me, but I would make sure the truth humiliated her. I met with a lawyer that same afternoon. His name was Michael Grant, a sharp, no-nonsense divorce attorney. I laid everything out in front of him, every detail of her affair. He listened carefully, nodding, then said, "Ethan, you've got more than enough here. With this evidence, you'll have the upper hand in court. Property division, alimony, everything. We can make sure she doesn't walk away with much." It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about justice. It was about making sure she couldn't keep living her double life without consequences. Vanessa had made me feel powerless, but now, with Michael's help, I felt a spark of control again. But I didn't stop there. I started digging deeper into Richard Lawson. Who was he, really? A quick search told me he was an executive at a consulting firm, married, with 2 kids. My jaw clenched as I stared at his smiling family photo on social media. So he wasn't just destroying my marriage. He was betraying his own family, too. The hypocrisy made me sick. For days, I collected information, building my arsenal. Vanessa still thought I didn't know the full truth. She still texted me from New York, pretending she was away on business, while I knew she was sneaking around with him. Every message she sent fueled my resolve. I didn't respond. Not yet. I wanted her to think she was safe, that I was still in the dark. Because when the time came, I wanted the impact to crush her. One evening, as I sat in my office staring at the folder of evidence, I whispered to myself, "You want to play games, Vanessa? Fine. Let's play. But I'll be the one writing the rules now." And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was about revenge. The folder of evidence sat on my desk like a loaded weapon. Every receipt, every email, every lie Vanessa had told me was in there, waiting to be unleashed. For days I stared at it, fueling my anger, sharpening my resolve. This wasn't about begging her to love me again. That Ethan was gone. Now it was about justice, about showing Vanessa Hart and her lover Richard Lawson that choices have consequences. Michael Grant, my lawyer, was impressed with how much I had gathered. "You've practically done my job for me," he said with a small grin. "With this, you'll get the divorce on your terms. The judge will see clear infidelity, and you'll walk away with property and finances secure. She won't stand a chance." But the legal battle wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. Vanessa hadn't just betrayed me. She had humiliated me. She lied to my face, looked me in the eyes every night, and pretended she was my wife while sneaking around with Richard. She needed to feel that same humiliation. And Richard, with his perfect family portrait smiling online, needed to face the truth too. The plan came together piece by piece. I started with Richard. One evening, sitting alone in my office, I drafted an anonymous package. Inside were copies of emails, hotel receipts, and photos I'd managed to gather of him and Vanessa together. I included a simple note. "Your husband has been meeting my wife at the Hilton. You deserve to know the truth." I addressed it to Emily Lawson, Richard's wife. Dropping that package into the mailbox felt like striking the first blow in a long war. Next came Vanessa. She still thought I was clueless. She kept sending me fake messages about her business meetings, acting like everything was normal. I played along, silent and patient, letting her dig her own grave. She had no idea that I was about to pull the ground out from under her. A week later, Michael and I filed for divorce. He advised me to tell Vanessa before she was served, but I wanted her shock to be complete. I wanted her to feel the earth crumble beneath her feet when reality finally hit. The moment arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Vanessa walked into the kitchen, dressed sharply as if for work, her phone in her hand. She barely looked at me as she poured herself coffee. "I'll be back late tonight," she said casually. I set down my mug, my eyes fixed on her. "No, you won't." She froze, turning slowly to face me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said calmly, sliding a thick envelope across the table, "this marriage is over. You've been served." Her face drained of color as she opened the envelope and pulled out the divorce papers. Her hand shook as she read them, her lips parting in shock. Ethan, no, we can work this out. Work this out. I interrupted, my voice sharp. You've been cheating on me for a year, Vanessa. Lying, sneaking around, humiliating me. There's no working this out. There's no fixing this. Tears filled her eyes as she stepped closer. Please, Ethan, I made a mistake. No, I said coldly, standing up. You made a choice, and now you live with it. She tried to argue, to plead, but I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her sobbing at the table. For the first time in months, I felt powerful. 2 days later, the real fallout began. Richard's wife, Emily, called me. Her voice trembled with anger and pain. I got your package. Thank you for telling me the truth. I had my suspicions, but I didn't know it was this bad. He's out of the house now. I'm filing for divorce. Hearing those words sent a strange sense of satisfaction through me. Richard Lawson had destroyed my marriage, and now his was crumbling too. He would lose everything he thought he could protect, his wife, his family, his reputation. But Vanessa's reckoning was only just beginning. Word spread quickly. Friends who once envied our perfect marriage now looked at her with pity and judgment. At work, whispers followed her down the hallways. Colleagues learned about the affair, about her lies, and her spotless reputation began to crack. The woman who had always prided herself on control now found herself losing it piece by piece. Our divorce hearings were brutal, but I came prepared. Every lie she tried to spin, I countered with proof. Every denial she attempted collapsed under the weight of evidence. Michael stood beside me like a general leading a war, and together we dismantled her defenses. When the judge ruled in my favor, granting me the house, most of our assets, and minimal alimony for her, Vanessa's face went pale. She had expected to walk away unscathed. Instead, she walked away defeated. The final confrontation came one evening after court. She showed up at the house, the one that was legally mine now, standing on the porch with tears streaking her face. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Why, Vanessa? I asked, my voice tired but steady. Why throw away everything we built? She shook her head, sobbing. I don't know. I was selfish. Richard made me feel alive in ways I thought I'd lost. But it wasn't worth this. I lost you. I lost everything. I studied her face, searching for the woman I had once loved. But she wasn't there anymore. All I saw was regret and emptiness. You didn't lose me, Vanessa, I said quietly. You threw me away. And now you're living with the result. I closed the door, her sobs muffled as I locked it behind her. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. Vanessa moved out of the city, her career in shambles. Richard's wife left him, taking the kids, and his firm quietly pushed him out to avoid scandal. Both of them got exactly what they deserved. As for me, I started over. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it faded with time. I focused on rebuilding my business, reconnecting with friends I had neglected, and finding myself again. I wasn't a broken man standing in that hotel hallway anymore. I was stronger, wiser. People often ask me if I regret following her that night, if I regret uncovering the truth. And I tell them no, because knowing the truth, as painful as it was, set me free. It taught me that love without honesty is just an illusion. It showed me that sometimes the only way forward is through fire. And though Vanessa once lied about business trips, though she tried to destroy me with her betrayal, in the end, I came out stronger. Because while she lost everything, I found myself again.